Hello everyone, welcome to episode 20 of the Iosphere, where this week we'll be talking about Twitter. My name is
Twitter.
Joy, and
I'm tired of Twitter already.
we're all exhausted this week.
It's been a really weird week though. I'm trying to think of what the act. Was it Monday? Was it Monday that there was the big doomsday, or was it before that?
I thought it was, I don't know, I thought it was Friday.
I already feel like it's been fucking
It
ages.
feels like 84 years, like GIF from the Titanic, it's been 84 years. It feels like that. What are you up to?
It genuinely feels like pre-Elon Twitter was weeks ago.
It does,
The amount
but it
of
wasn't. It's been a week.
the amount of bad shit that's happened, and I think the immediate thing was you saw him. Did you see him walk into Twitter HQ?
I've not been watching him, so
Yeah.
no.
So the day of the takeover, Elon Musk walked in carrying a sink and said, "Let that sink in," because he's a ultra memer who's really funny. Yeah, it's bad.
I'd like to point out my heart rate spiked with rage enough that Holly actually came back into the room. Yeah, hi.
But it's proper 16-year-old meme humor, isn't it?
It's
Very
not even
embarrassing.
I don't know. It would be funny in some instances if someone did it randomly, but you know that some poor person wrote that for him.
Yeah, he didn't think of it himself.
He doesn't have that
yeah.
vibe where he can get away with it. Some poor intern wrote that for him, and that's worse.
Yeah. And then I like how one of the things was comedy is now legal on Twitter again, is what he put out, and everyone has been ripping the absolute shit out of him and has found their accounts being censored. I think he's had beef with so many individual people. Kind of started Stephen King basically told him to fuck off because I was like, yeah, wouldn't you want to pay $20 a month for your verification tick? And Stephen King went, no. And it's like, oh well, what about 8? So Stephen King, by telling him to fuck off, made him slash his original plan by over 50%.
The thought process behind it, and it's really sad. I mean, there's a member of staff on Tumblr who's been, blogging about it fairly prolifically, and their point was, Twitter just axed 20 times more staff than currently exist at Tumblr HQ.
Yeah.
And A, holy shit, Tumblr is drastically understaffed, and B, that's a fuck ton of people that just lost their income.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking
and
at.
They found it through email, I think, a lot.
Yeah, I mean, well, it was interesting. So some of them, it was planned for a lot of them to find out via email at a specific time. What that specific time also didn't factor in was the international staff. So I think all of the UK Twitter team just found themselves locked out of Slack and locked out their work laptops. That was how they learned. And I suppose in some way it must be quite, I don't want to say it's quite good to be part of such a big group of people who've been released into the workforce, because obviously there'll be companies left, right and centre putting their hands up saying we're looking for people, and hopefully all these people get hoovered up quickly. But I mean, imagine, let's say you're working for Twitter and you're on a work visa or something like that. Suddenly it's not just your employment that's been taken away from you, it's also your potential to stay in the country, and your healthcare and everything else.
There was one person I saw who's going to lose their green card because of it.
Eesh.
That's, as someone who's gone through the immigration process, I have my green card. I do not have citizenship. It took me 5 years to get my green card. Whilst this is our 10-year anniversary for our marriages next year, and I still don't have full citizenship because immigration in this country is such a nightmare. And I'm going, I cannot imagine losing your green card almost overnight because your employer is no longer taking care of that. Because a lot of these people, their green card is, linked to their employment.
Yeah. And I can, like, the thing is that I saw someone who was, who got, so I saw someone who wasn't fired from Twitter, who was talking about the actual internal company culture. He says, obviously, in a big tech company, you're going to have like political kind of headbutting every so often. Mm-hmm. But like, since Elon's came in, it's now like proper, like sycophantic levels of it. There's one woman I saw who like made a point to like tweet that she was sleeping at her desk. And it was like so proud of the she kept on saying the tweeps as in like peeps, but for Twitter employees.
Well, the tweeps have been calling themselves tweeps for a long time.
Oh, have they? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's embarrassing.
That's been a thing, part of the work culture for a long time is the tweeps.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a little bit cringy, but Tumblrs call themselves Tumblerinas. We can't really pass comment at this point. But,
I was gonna say I don't. But no, like I think it's sad that like because Elon Musk is so like he's obviously very online on Twitter. I think it's kind of sad that now like Twitter employees who maybe just like to be honest, I don't think I ever really encountered Twitter employees the same way that you would encounter any other type of employee on like Facebook employee or anything like that. Yeah, I feel like it's only recently that a bunch of them have become really quite popular because obviously a lot of them are getting followed by Musk fanboys, but you're also like they're also desperate to be posting to show that they're like a good faithful Twitter worker.
Look, we're here. I'm posting. I'm engaging. I'm doing the thing.
Yeah, it's like look, Daddy Elon. I am, working my best.
Oh, never say that again.
Yeah, no, I know.
No, don't ruin that word for me.
Oh God. Okay. So I think like that's obviously been one of the major kind of.
So I just want to point out, you said Daddy Elon and we lost 30 viewers.
That's fine. That's fine. I'll sacrifice those viewers if it means I can make you squirm. So I think the way that it's kind of panned out is obviously you've now got a bunch of Twitter employees that are now shilling like really hard. They're really, really going at it, and now you've got I see you've got people on the kind of like periphery who are saying things like, "Oh, Elon's really went in and he's shaking things up. He's completely changing the work culture because everyone seems to have this view that like if you worked for Twitter you weren't doing any work at all, and it was like the reason why all these people are getting fired is because they were asked to do like half an hour's amount of work in."
Yeah.
Like in a week, and the idea being that they would normally only do an hour of work every 6 months, that kind of thing, which is like
not true.
Yeah, I mean, like all of the content moderation team and the human rights team and like all the ethics teams and stuff like that I've just been bagged completely, and I find that really interesting because like. When people were getting fired and they were actually being able to quite candidly speak about what their role at Twitter was. And it was like, so what we do is we actually do the kind of social experimentation of what happens when we release a new feature. Like what actually happens when we release this to a global audience where like, there's a lot of people online and, how do they all interact with each other with each of these features. And that is like I find that absolutely fascinating. It's like so you had all these like research and development teams that have just been dismissed as like, oh, you've never actually done much for the platform, and yet it's like I'm not saying that Twitter's great. Obviously there's still a fuckload of Nazis and there's like, a whole bunch
It's the
of
problem of
shit.
regulating any massive social media.
Yeah, people don't
Yeah.
understand the scale of how big Twitter is and managing that amount of users, especially users who might have 7 accounts.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you think about like the transphobes in the UK, like it's so obvious that there's like they sit on like 20, 30 accounts and they all interact with each other all the
Raise their
time.
numbers up. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a well-known tactic on Tumblr as well. There's
Yeah.
not as many as you think there are. A lot of them just have sock puppets to make them. That was almost a bad slip-up word there. Sock puppet accounts to make their numbers more inflated and to make it look as if you're outnumbered. It's a well-known tactic on. I mean, it's always been we had it in LiveJournal as well.
Is it not astroturfing? Is that not what that is?
Yeah. Yeah. And it goes back to LiveJournal. People would have multiple accounts as well to try and make it look as if, oh, well, I've got friends, I've got people that follow me. And it's like, right, okay, well, what's the IP origin for all of them? Oh, it comes from your house? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You got 50 people living in your basement, do you? That's another problem we need to address.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But
it's who was it that said it in the chat? The Keith was saying, they were firing people based on they've written the least amount of code.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, so if you are an efficient coder, Elon is going, oh, well, obviously you're not doing as much as the other people who've written screens. I mean, that's
it's not even the most
spaghetti code on Tumblr is better than having precise code.
I mean, the thing is it's also sometimes the most complex code. Like it's the code that governs like the security and like all the rest of it. Like that tends to be very well refined bits of code. I'm saying like you can just fucking do tons of line breaks and that could be lines of code. And I did find it was interesting that you got, was it Tesla engineers to review the code of the Twitter people. And it's like
it's completely different.
It's just completely different landscape. One thing that I found interesting as well is that like Elon has put himself in a really silly position where he's trying to give 2 different messages to different people. Like he's on one hand he's got to say to advertisers that all of your content, everything on the website is safe. Your brand will be protected. People like content will be properly moderated. Don't worry, keep on advertising. We still want your money. While at the same time, he's telling all like the right wingers who like have been desperate to just yell whatever they want on Tumblr for ages. It's like, yeah, free speech is back, baby. You can say the N-word as many times as you like. Which, by the way, the fucking usage of the N-word increased by an ungodly percentage.
They're not something like 500 times.
Oh, something absolutely
like
insane.
Awful.
Like the amount, like it's funny because like the amount of toxic shit I've seen just in passing on Twitter since Elon Musk's takeover. I've seen some awful shit. Like proper anti-Semitic, like Holocaust denial, like just in passing as well. Just the the different accounts and stuff that are now basically empowered to say whatever they want. There's tons of shit like that now.
I mean, from our side of it, a lot of our social activism for the disability community, a lot of it is done through Twitter, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And it's no secret that for the entirety of the pandemic, we were getting told, just kill yourselves, you're a burden on society. One of the main reasons I stopped using Twitter as much as it was because it was like, it was literally people would just come in and be like, there was one guy who used to come to my account constantly. He had multiple accounts and he'd go, are you dead yet? Every time I posted.
What the fuck?
And I reported and reported and reported. And I've noticed that nothing is happening to him anymore as of this week. Because it used to be when I was like, hey, this guy is doing the thing, pretty much gone within 24 hours. It's been a full week, that guy's still there. And I'm like, okay, this is new. This is not fun. But it just means I will not feel able to post anymore, which is what they want. They don't want people to post about. I mean,
But
Imani gets worse because Imani's also black, but her notes are just a fiasco. I mean,
yeah,
from everyone calling her the N word to all, it's just awful. It is awful the amount of a lot of if you're. I am very lucky. I am a white disability advocate. And I feel threatened to go on Twitter right now. I cannot imagine what it is like for other minorities to be like, no, actually, I'm getting threatened on like multiple platforms,
yeah,
multiple different things at this point. It is god awful, and it is just like nothing is happening, and it's been a week. But
yeah. I
that's
mean,
because they got rid of the people that were doing things.
yeah. I mean, like the thing is, this isn't sustainable at all. Like
No,
the
it's gonna
even
collapse.
even with the $8, I've not talked about that. Like the you, I saw the update on my phone. I don't think that I can do it yet. But I did see an update that was with the guys of enabling me to pay for a verified check mark. So like I saw in the change notes on the update, and like it's not available yet, but you can already
Mm-hmm.
see how that's going to get abused because it turns out you don't need to verify like your identity or whatever, which I am not for any sort of ID
No, me
verification
neither.
on any social media. Whenever someone brings it up saying that they'll tackle the bots or whatever, it is a terrible fucking idea and it impacts way too many people above what the abuser kind of accounts are. You're attacking people who are fleeing domestic violence and all the rest of it, people who want to escape family. It's just not a good idea ever.
No.
Um, but so obviously they've not been able to do anything like that. But they're now pay. You can now pay to verify your account, and even though your at is your at, and it remains your at. Your display name can be whatever the fuck you want it to be, which is why
Mm-hmm.
so many blue ticked people have changed their names to Elon Musk, and they're now taking the piss out of it. I saw one that was talking about it's like I never learned Grimes's name, and she always said that my dick is small and that I smell of nacho cheese, and it got trending to the point that people were receiving the notification on their phones that said Elon Musk. Grimes says my dick's small and I smell like nacho cheese because it shows the display name. It doesn't show the at.
Yes,
So,
that's pretty funny actually. That's
I, but like,
yeah.
is that not just like a guy who thinks he knew? Like, just because he was popular on Twitter, he thought he knew how to run Twitter, and it's now just a catastrophe.
I
Um,
mean, he didn't think he knew how to run it. He just thought he could do it better than the people already there. Because so I have multiple issues with Elon Musk and people who think he's a genius. He's fucking not. People are like, oh well, he helped found PayPal. He didn't do anything that made PayPal PayPal. He was the hedge fund kid that provided finances. And
yeah.
then when he started bringing ideas to board meetings and started demanding things, they kicked him out.
Yeah.
He did not help found PayPal in any sense of the technicalities
Similar
of
with
it. He gave them
Tesla.
money.
Like he bought the founder label off of Tesla's
Yeah,
original founders. He's not an actual founder. He's down as a founder because he paid for the title.
because he paid for it.
Um,
And that money came from the slave trade. It came from emerald mines. It came
yeah.
from exploitation, which is very apt for Elon Musk because all he does is exploit the platforms he is on.
And
Um,
to be
and
honest,
it's
it's
yeah,
I remember when I remember when Trump was president and he had a proper good dig at Elon for it was probably the one like really comical thing that Trump did. But he said that like Elon Musk came to him basically begging for government money. And Trump said that he could have told Elon to like get on his knees and beg, and he would have done it. I remember him tweeting that, and and there you go, Joy. There's a mental image: Elon Musk begging Trump for money. I hope you.
I had water in my mouth. I almost died.
But but I mean, like that's the sort of like people don't understand like the amount of government money that's went into like all of the R&D for things like Tesla, for things
Mm-hmm.
like the fucking Boring Company and the Hyperloop and all that shit, and then also for SpaceX. Like all of that has been massively government funded,
Mm-hmm.
including the stuff for Starlink and all the rest of it. It's like all of it is kind of, you know, it's not one man and all of his finance championing all of these different things. It's
No.
been massive influx of government money, basically public money, um, for whatever R&D kind of things he's been after. One thing that actually does annoy me, and I don't want this to be an Elon Musk episode. I want this to be like a kind of more Twitter one. But the thing about the Hyperloop really fucking annoys me because it was so obviously like a plan to just get rid of the conversation about high speed rail in the US.
Mm.
America would be fucking amazing with high speed rail.
It would.
See, as someone who would like to visit America, it would be fucking incredible to do a high speed rail tour of the US. Imagine all the stuff you could visit. Like,
It would open up so much accessibility to people. It would
hmm,
decrease pollution. It would be so useful to have this. And it's just the fact that it's better for me to take a flight to go see someone an hour away is catastrophic. That
yeah,
is just so bad. It's like it just completely it annoys me so much. It's really one of those things I'm going, all right, well, I can fly somewhere, but as a disabled person, flying's fraught for me.
yeah.
Like I have a condition that makes going up into the air really bad for my heart and everything else. And even if, with your wheelchair, you lose access to all your accessibility stuff because you can't fit it on a plane. If you had a high speed train that was built with accessibility in mind, which again, you probably have to
That's another
make
thing.
him, you'd have to emphasize that. But it would mean you could retain your autonomy
Mm,
more than you can with flying. And I would love that. I would love to be able to go places like of all places, my health improves when I'm in Florida. Don't ask me why.
hmm,
And the last time I was in Florida, my health was great. I'm going, it would be fantastic to like just go down to Florida, but it involves a 5 hour flight, which makes me incredibly ill.
mm,
And I'm like, if I could take a train that would do it in like 8 hours or however long it would take, I would do it. I would be
yeah.
there constantly. Just I'd be at the seaside for my health like a Victorian lady. Um, but but even then, like you could have people that could work easier. You could have people that aren't having to fly everywhere for work, or they're not
Yeah,
having to drive everywhere for work. It would be so good for the infrastructure in the US, but they're not going to do it because oil owns everything here,
yeah.
unfortunately.
I mean, like, as into, I'm like, to be honest, we can link it back to flying, but like, I saw that one of the biggest things when people with wheelchairs fly is the amount of, well, the lack of care given to the wheelchairs
Oh, they
when they're
just
actually
fucking
being
throw them
loaded. They
in.
get fucking
Yeah.
chucked onto the plane, and there's always damage, and then it's like, chasing up a fucking airline for ages and all the rest
And
of it.
it's damage to equipment that our insurance does not cover.
Yeah,
It's not like well, I say that in the UK you get the bog standard NHS kind of wheelchair stuff. If you're lucky, you can get some advanced stuff. Most of the time, you pay for it yourself.
yeah.
Here in the US, you pay for everything yourself to do with that. I had to buy my own crutches recently, because it's not included on my insurance.
I hate
And
America.
it's
What the
yeah.
fuck? What the fuck?
Um, but it's things like when they just chuck your wheelchair in, especially you're not just taking away, it's not like you lose your luggage, which is frustrating. You are losing your legs.
Yeah.
You are losing your autonomy. You're losing the ability to, there was one person who unfortunately died because she lost access to her wheelchair that was customized to her because the bog standard one she could afford caused her spinal compression to get worse and it caused other issues and she
Mm.
unfortunately ended up taking her own life. And that's the kind of thing that people don't think about it. They think of it as, oh, it's just an accessory. It's someone's livelihood. It's their ability to be themselves. And
Yeah.
they just, they treat it as if it's a suitcase. They just reach it in, and
Yeah.
then they don't care if it's broken. And then every day on Twitter, on disabled Twitter, I see somebody saying, "Oh, the United Airlines broke my chair. Delta broke my chair." And it's horrifying. I mean, there was one time I flew with my brother, and we were going from Florida to New York, and they just lost his wheelchair. We never found that. We never found his wheelchair.
Hmm.
And it was we asked for compensation, and we got a voucher for $100 to go towards another flight. That's what we got. And you think to yourself, how did they get away with this? And it's because a lot of disability stuff is not enshrined in law. And it needs to be. And that's a huge part of it as well. And it's just it's so built in to keep capitalism to be the focus of things. Because again, things like a speed rail would open up too much for lower class people.
Yeah, like social mobility and like fucking mobility.
Basically mobility.
Would be way too advanced. No, I mean, like, it's interesting you mentioned United Airlines there, because like there is actually United Airlines have pulled all of their advertising from Twitter now. And there's
Didn't you told me Coca-Cola was pulling out?
Coca-Cola's pulled out as well.
How fucking evil do you need to be that Coca-Cola's going,
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm sorry, but Coca-Cola fucking advertises everywhere. I cannot believe Twitter's gotten to the point. I mean, this is the problem now, is like trying to justify yourself to your advertisers, who are the ones that were bringing in the big bucks. Because I mean, I think people did calculations that the number of verified users on Twitter is actually really fucking low. To the point where even if you were charging them all $20 a month, like, it's not going to make a fucking dent in the amount of like money and loan money that's been taken to fucking pay for Twitter's purchase in the first place. You know, I think even if punters like me decided to, for whatever reason, like, and this is the thing, at the moment I pay £7.99 or something like that a month to get access to Xbox Game Pass, right? And that gives me access to all of the Xbox library, as well as a bunch of games that are kind of independently developed and all the rest of it. That's more valuable to me than Twitter will ever be. If I get charged for Twitter and it becomes a mandatory thing, I've got Tumblr, thanks. I'm not going to throw myself on the sword for. I've got energy bills to pay instead. I don't give a fuck about Twitter. Like, Twitter could die on its arse tomorrow, right? And I would maybe miss some of my pals on it, but like, I've got pals elsewhere.
You find, if the people you really want to keep in touch with, you find ways to keep in touch with them. And I say that as someone who's been chronically online since the LiveJournal days, when we lost everything in the purges.
Yeah.
And it was, you find ways to keep track of people. There are some people that you will lose because they just lose interest, and that's fair. But it's just that kind of, it's an added layer. It's an added hindrance to having contact with people in this day and age when everything's done through social media. Like, I have a friend who I purely keep up with how her kids are doing through Instagram and Facebook, and I'm like, this is awful. But that's the main way they've chosen to communicate with people. They won't text you, but they will post on Facebook. And I'm going, I was locked out of my Facebook account for a year and a half. I could not get them to unrelease my password because I refused to give them my identity, basically. And it's like, well, you're missing out on so much stuff because you're not on social media. And I'm like, I am on social media. I'm just not on social media with my birth name.
Yeah.
Because I don't like that. Like, I don't want that to be a thing. And it's the what is she doing? Anyway,
what happened to Bebo? Remember Bebo?
Do you remember Bebo? A lot of the US people are going to go, what the fuck is Bebo? Bebo was British.
Oh, was
Facebook.
it? I
think it was, yeah.
I thought it was an American thing. Or was it the
British? Because there was sorry, there's chaos going on behind me. The Bebo one, I remember, because I had a lot of US friends that didn't have access to Bebo, and I didn't have access to Facebook until Facebook went public. Because Facebook used to be, you needed a university uh, um,
Yeah, because
else
that
in
it
the
was
Facebook.
originally Harvard kind of thing, wasn't it? Like you had
Yeah, yeah,
to,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
My
Um.
Bebo, my professors followed me on Bebo, which was a whole
Oh,
thing that you'd never do today.
did
Like
did
it would be
did they
so inappropriate.
did they send you love? Remember, you
They
could say,
did. They did. There was
oh,
one of them that used to like love my posts and stuff like that, and it was so weird.
oh,
But we were like, okay, this is cool, like because whatever, you're all adults. But it was still like a real like, oh, this is how this kind of power. This is somebody's bad erotica. This is how this starts.
yeah.
But
So
but
here's
yeah, it was.
I'll take that to the next level. Do you remember the precursor to Bebo? It was called Pixo.
I think so. I don't think
It
I
was
had an account
it,
though.
it was it was it was one of those things that was like HTML. Like it was very HTML. Like you can make an infinite number of fucking pages. Everyone had a homepage, and then people would have like a list of other pages, and it was very like HTML based. But then you could
Yeah,
like
it,
drag
it
and
sounds
drop.
familiar. It sounds familiar.
It's
Yeah.
very. That was like very pre Bebo.
Kind of like, yeah,
Um,
like Alistair was saying, like GeoCities. I'm old enough that I
don't know
had a
about.
GeoCities, and I gave people war flashbacks last week when I brought up Elfwood. People were just freaking
Oh,
out when I brought that up. Elfwood was what um, Elfwood was an art site before DeviantArt existed,
mm,
and it was heavily moderated, and it was the art had to be a certain level to get in, and then they opened it up
right.
and it was just chaos. Um, But yeah, that was my origins were the Elfwood and also Elf Town, Elf Pack. They had like their own community in Elf Town. You had to write your own wiki pages because they didn't use just
Oh,
HTML. You had to use wiki to do it, and
this is
that
what
was
we
what I
want. We
grew up
want
using.
like this is what social media should be. We're gonna devolve it, right? We're just gonna like we're gonna like the devolution of social media now. We got all the way up to like really easy to use like user interfaces, good UX, all that jazz.
Yeah,
It is now time to like we need to go back to like Bebo and GeoCities and all the rest. Like
I missed Geo. I'm so old. I miss GeoCities. I really do. It was so fun. You had all your own stuff, and it's like, um,
here's the thing. Do you
yeah,
remember think.com?
I do.
Like I remember that was a thing in it was like primary school. It was like fucking like baby's first social media,
Yeah,
and it
yeah,
was like
yeah,
but it was all self-contained, so it was only your own class. Um,
yeah.
and I just remember it was like primary six or something, and one of the guys in my class got banned because he just started posting porn. Like he
Oh my God.
I'm talking about like the super like low res like porn gifs from like early
The
2000s.
the dial-up ones
Like
that won't
oh
load
yeah,
at
like
nine at a
the
time.
like the sexy girl dancing on a like in GIF format that you would have on your phone. Like your really shitty phone, not your touchscreen phone. As Keith saying in
Your
chat,
flip phone.
they were only
Your flip phone.
one kilobyte in total. Yeah, just like pixelated boobs. But yeah, like I don't know what prompted. He said he was hacked. Was he? Fuck. He's like he just decided to carpet his whole fucking page in it. And then a teacher stumbled upon it who was looking at all of the different ones. And that was that was the end to his social media quest. Um,
Delicious Pirate God's comment, nutting to pixels is really just something that I never wanted to see, but thank you very much for that vital contribution. Oliver,
hey,
what is
hey,
wrong with you?
we've all done it. Everything's pixelated. It depends how big the pixel is.
That's true.
But yeah, it was a time. So what we're really saying is that Twitter thing is, Elon Musk's went and fired like all of the teams that are keeping the very like really important bits of Twitter up and running, and they're going to crash and burn in like a couple of weeks' time. And yeah,
I
it'll
don't think
be
it's going to be a couple of weeks. I literally, it's
just stick a
just
timer on.
evolving so rapidly.
It's yeah, it's not going too well for him. And I the thing is, you can't have a mainstream social media site that operates like 4chan, right?
No,
Like you can't like advertisers. Like your fucking doesn't matter if it's luxury fashion or Coca-Cola or whatever it is. They're not going to share a site that's predominantly like people chucking around the N word. It's not.
no.
It's not going to happen from a brand perspective. They'll all just move elsewhere. But the thing that we were talking about before this kind of stream began is like for publishing.
Oh,
Like
it's panic.
it is,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Sorry, the mop has the zoomies and she's all over the place. Just see her going whoosh in the background. Mainstream publishing is panicking because they have made their entire platform is basically on Twitter. And it is the widespread, if you wanted to find a literary agent, people would say, oh, just go to Twitter. If
Yeah.
you wanted to try and get a publishing deal, go to Twitter. And it's like, okay, so what's mainstream publishing going to do? Fucking Tumblr? Like,
Yes! Make it so! You will sit on top your throne of skulls, Joy. This is what we want.
them here. There's a very different vibe. There's a very different vibe between Facebook authors and Tumblr authors.
Yeah.
We're frankly feral in comparison, and I don't want those people on my platform.
But I mean, like,
I like being separate from them because it means I don't have to because they'll start demanding censorship for certain things if that is what they're going to do because they're so used to having everything perfectly curated.
Yeah.
The advertisers, and it's like that's what it is. Twitter is very good for advertisers, or it was, which makes it very good for marketing books too, because you can say, well, this person said this word, therefore they're banned. You do that on Tumblr, and it's not going to work unless they massively alter how the platform functions.
I mean, the problem with, like, I mean, if you think about all the things we've talked about in previous podcasts regarding publishing and how, mainstream publishers have been requesting, oh, do you have an existing following on Twitter? Like, I imagine all of the checks that that these publishing houses would do on an individual who's submitting a book to them. It's like, oh, well, okay, if you're verified on Twitter, well, that means fuck all anymore because anyone can pay $8 a month and get verified. So that's that out the window. And, like, I mean, again, who wants to? Well, I'm not popular on Twitter. Oh, well, why not? Well, have you seen the fucking state of it? It's a bin fire. I don't. Also, it's like I don't need to prove myself to you, publishing house, because what? Are you going to request my Twitter metrics? It's a shit show.
But some of them do. Like, there's literally, I get messages weekly from young authors going, I'm trying to build up a similar platform to what you have. How did you do it? And I'm like, it took me decades to do this. I am not new to having audiences online. I have been doing this since I was 15 years old. And the fact that they're going, oh, well, just have a big, just build up a social media platform. What they want is for you to have the money to buy that platform.
Yeah.
And the fact, that's not fair. That rigs the system's already rigged. But they're going for people that can afford to do that. And it's really quite disheartening to see how many people they're reaching out to me and saying, oh, the publisher says unless I maintain a following on Twitter of over 10K, my next royalty will be worth less because I'm not pulling in the numbers I should be. And it's like, it's almost like publishers should be doing marketing themselves.
Yeah.
Like, it's almost like that should be a thing, but, fuck us, I guess.
I mean, the thing is, right, and like we're seeing some people are saying in chats, like, celebrities are trying to make the move to Tumblr at the moment. You've got people who are making new Tumblr accounts, and there are some celebrities who would get away with it, right? Like Neil Gaiman. He's cool, or Gaiman. I'm sorry, I always say Gaiman. Neil Gaiman. He exists already.
People keep saying Neil Gaiman's the only one that fits in with Tumblr. it is the other way around. Tumblr fits around Neil Gaiman. Neil Gaiman's always been fucking weird.
Yeah.
He's the granddaddy of the people that built Tumblr the way that it is. He's part of that weird vibe that's always existed. It's not that we've accepted him; it's that we're allowed to exist in his natural ecosystem.
Someone, yeah. Well, so people are also saying Will Wheaton in chat. Someone mentioned someone sent me an ask saying Will Wheaton was looking for like a Scottish voice actor and was like saying that like I should reach out to Will Wheaton on Tumblr, and I was like, oh, I'm just gonna fucking DM him, right? But like
you can though.
I can, but then I got like the angriest anon about
Will Wheaton,
about Will Wheaton, and I was like, I don't know much about him.
There are some people that really hate Will Wheaton, and okay. I don't know why. I know it's because there was some drama that I knew where he was not attributing popular posts to people on Tumblr, and it was like, oh, this is content theft. And it's like, I mean, yes. But at the same time, who's not reblogging funny tweets that have been posted? And like, it's a weird... I don't know.
Sorry, Gillian Anderson's been on Tumblr. I think if she followed me on Tumblr, I'd probably burst into flames. But like the thing is though is that there's going to be tons of celebrities who won't be able to make that jump, and to be honest I think it would be one, they're not going to get the verification process, which I think quite a lot of them feed off on Twitter, which is why a lot of them are annoyed that like the verification's coming in on Twitter. Like everyone can pay for a blue tick, but like imagine I make a fucking shit post on Tumblr and then suddenly you've got like, I don't know, Ryan Reynolds retweeting
Tumblr's down.
Is it?
It's down.
It's up for me. Oh no, it's down.
It's down. It's down.
Oh fuck.
What do we do?
Panic. You know what's happened? Like someone somewhere, a blue tick on Twitter has said, I'm moving to Tumblr, and has managed to pull fucking everyone with them. This'll be a nightmare. I'm saying it now. If we allow hold the line, people, if a certain number of like people are able to influence the way that Tumblr works, if they join and they fit in with Tumblr, it'll be better.
It's funny though, because the current CEO of Tumblr is actually, I don't know if anyone's following him, I can't remember the handle.
It's back up, we're all good.
Is it back? He's actually quite funny because he actually did a breakdown on why we can't have 2008 pornography on 2020 Tumblr, and he was actually really funny. And someone's like, oh, well, if we earn enough money, if Tumblr earns enough money, can we have the tits back? And he just replied, yes. Because he's like, if we can be financially stable enough, I will bring it back. Yes, I will do it. And I don't think he's very interested in a lot of the kind of the blue tick and the censorship and everything else. Because I've scrolled through his feed and it's just him making fun of like verified people. Just like absolutely like, this is bullshit. Like I'm not feeding your fucking ego. Come to Tumblr and die. Like it's just like, but it's. I mean, it's kind of interesting.
Like at the moment, Tumblr is like, Tumblr's verified. I'm not sure if they were verified before, but Tumblr's got a blue tick on Twitter at the moment, and
really?
all they're doing is posting reasons to join Tumblr. Reasons to join Tumblr number 9 is we have crabs. Reasons to join Tumblr number 2 is Neil Gaiman hangs out and will show up unexpectedly.
Neil Gaiman just starts shit posting at 3 a.m. because he's avoiding a novel deadline. like all good authors should.
Reasons to join Tumblr number 5 is ridiculously huge character limit. Host your whole fic.
And you know what? Props to the people that got hired to Tumblr recently, because they've done a cracking job.
They've done a good job. I'm keen to get rid of the Tumblr iOS logo though. They need to stop changing it randomly. They should just stick to it once.
I like the spooky boy that we've got right now. I would like to see him wearing a Santa hat.
I'd be fine with it in app. I just don't like the iOS logo changing like on it, because like I'm used to the dark and then the nice tea, and then it's just, yeah, I don't know. Reasons to join Tumblr 4 is GIFs. Then we know color theory. Reasons to join Tumblr number 7.
You control your feed.
Yeah. If you don't want to see algorithmic recommendations, just turn them off. Based.
Yeah.
To be honest, like, it's funny how, like, they're a verified account. I'm not sure if they've like deliberately I'm not sure if they've paid for that.
They could have done, which would be absolutely hilarious
but
if they did.
They might have actually. But yeah, it's interesting seeing the number of people. It's like the one thing is like people who are saying, "Oh, I've logged on to Tumblr after like 10 years away." It's like,
welcome back, cheater.
Yeah,
welcome home.
Tumblr better start buying bird cages because you're going to have a whole zoo in your house. But yeah, the one that I did see that I thought was really funny is Tumblr tweeted yesterday saying, "Get in, loser, we're going to Super Hell." It's nice to have them kind of self-aware. Oh my! Do you want to hear something funny?
Go for it.
Just been confirmed an hour ago. Twitter is now asking some fired workers to please come back, saying that some were laid off by mistakes, some were let go before management realised their experience is needed to build the new features that Elon Musk is planning. See, if I imagine getting that fucking email. Imagine being like, "Oh, sorry, it was a mistake. Please come back." You tell me fuck off.
You would.
Like, or
it's also,
or if not, it would be
offered,
you're doubling my salary. Like,
I've just been offered to have a blue tick for $4.99 a month.
Woo-hoo! Yes, we should verify the iSphere. This is how we'll add it to our expenses. This is 100% what we should do. This is like, oh, we've always been this popular.
We've always been this popular. No, I'm staring at it. It popped up in my thing. I can subscribe for $4.99 a month to be verified on Twitter.
Nice.
It's not even $8.99, it's $4.99, which is the cost of sending someone crabs on Tumblr.
The crabs are more worth it.
They are.
Which, by the way, like, so yeah, our iSphere Twitter account with all 22 of its followers could be verified. We could go global. Think of it.
We could.
Thank you to Keith, who just followed us on Twitter and made it 23. Get in. That's it. We're gonna grow the iSphere specifically on
through the downfall of Twitter.
Yeah, exactly. It's like Twitter will be ashes and we will be standing above it all. Like a phoenix.
Throne of skulls.
But yeah, that's wild. I think like, to be honest, there's so many things that are underpinned by Twitter though that I feel like Elon's view of how to like monetize Twitter and how to make Twitter what he would like it to be doesn't stand up. There's communities of people there, and like Twitter's strength was always its user base, but but particularly it was like the social media of choice for a vast majority of journalists and the vast majority of like world politicians. Like, you've seen Ukraine and Russia have been having fucking Twitter spats. Like, the defense accounts have been tweeting each other over the course of the past like 9 months. Like, that's the level of how globally Twitter kind of sits. To try and turn it into a pay-as-you-go free-for-all. I mean, there was a video released saying, it was an interview with Elon Musk, and he was saying that the plan is that anyone who doesn't pay to be a verified account will essentially be shadow banned. Like, they will be heavily suppressed. in regards to how much you can actually use and tweet and how likely you are to actually be shown. Like if you tweet, it'll actually be at the bottom of the pile because everyone who has a verified account's tweets will be first. That kind of thing. That's just not fucking sustainable at all. People will leave before they. I mean, unless you've got people who are really, really addicted to Twitter, which I don't know.
I mean, there are some people that are. And
Yeah.
apologies to anyone who got an earful of Holly Mop chewing. She was trying to eat the mic. But there are some people that are just like Twitter's their whole life.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's going to be really easy. I mean, I'm just thinking. So for both me and you could verify ourselves on Twitter, right? And I feel like it would be really easy to paint ourselves as people who are deserving of a verified check. Now, to be fair, you're a lot more deserving of a verified check than I am. You've published stuff, so that I'd say that you are deserving of that. But I feel like I could probably wordsmith a way of making it sound like I'm a legit person who should be verified, even if really I'm not. And I imagine how many other people are going to be doing that. So it would be quite easy for, let's pick a transphobe out of the dozens that we've got. Well, just pick fucking random transphobe. Could easily say that they've created an organisation that they're a founder of. And it could be an organisation of one, that they're now a verified person. It gives this really fake legitimacy.
It does, and it's a thing that bothers me about a lot of these platforms. There's literally a lot of people that become best-selling authors on Instagram. They're people that are able to buy massive followings.
Yeah.
And they get the one-hit wonder, but the book's actually garbage and the reviews tank it. But they maintain the fame because they've got trending numbers.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the thing that there's a someone we know who she has 100,000 people on Instagram. They're all bought.
Yeah.
She's a very generic, very pretty, very lovely young lady, but her feed is just, you can just buy followers. You can buy followers for Twitter. You can't do that for Tumblr. I mean, I suppose you could try, but it's so surreal that they immediately slap things on. There was so a big reason a lot of authors get to call themselves New York Times bestsellers isn't because they individually have had a New York Times bestseller. It's because they've been part of an anthology with a pre-existing New York Times bestseller who guaranteed that the book made it onto the list. So if you've ever wondered how the fuck somebody you've never heard of is a New York Times bestseller, it's possibly that their publisher is one of the sponsors for the New York Times bestseller, and that's how their book automatically made it on the list. Or they were part of an anthology with a pre-existing New York Times bestseller who guaranteed their placement on the editorial. And it's a popularity contest. And Twitter and Instagram and TikTok as well to some extent enable that, because they're able to turn around and say, well, I have the numbers for this. And a lot of these places are going, we were talking about, is the publisher going to look at your Twitter metric? They do.
Yeah.
But who's to say those numbers are real? Who's to say they're people that click? It's one of the funniest things for me was Fangs became a bestseller before I even launched it, because I was doing an anthology and people noticed my author page was live, and they bought so much of it, my account got flagged as a bot because they thought it was bot. It wasn't. It was Tumblr. It was the click-through from Tumblr. Because I have 70,000 people on Tumblr who they will click things if I post them, which a lot of people do not have, even when they have I've got 200,000 followers. How many of them click things? How many of them actually buy things? How many of them commit through? Or is it just numbers to make you look good?
I think that does seem the thing. I think, like we've talked about this before. Like you always go through your like Tumblr followers and you can clean up. And like it
Yeah,
actually it's time consuming, but the reason why like I can joke about like the number of Tumblr followers I have is because like I know that I've vetted like there's like
yeah.
the amount of like porn accounts that actually do try and follow you that you then end up like stamping out. Um, it's actually you've curated this list that I'd probably have double or triple the followers that I have now if I hadn't been fucking deleting porn accounts left, right, and
I
center.
go through once a week, every Friday morning. I go through, and I know exactly how many people are real followers, or I used to.
Yeah,
It's kind of hard now because you have all these people with blank accounts, and you're going, "Are you real or are you just new?"
yeah.
So I've been giving them a bit more leeway with some of them, but there's always the obvious ones that are like, "Oh, stolen porn pics." It's like, I mean, I have a lot of sex workers that follow me. I have a lot of porn accounts that follow me. Great, fine, fantastic. As
You
long as
can
they're
you
not.
can you can tell a mile off what's a it's like a sex worker's account and what's a
Yes, yes,
spammy bot porn, and it's always
yeah,
like it's always the ones that's like it's hot young singles near you. It's like that level of
yeah, yeah,
obvious,
yeah, yeah. And
Uh,
it's I mean, I have a lot of people that just reblog porn gifs, and that's fine. I don't care about that either. But you can tell when it's like this is a bot pushing these things versus a
yeah,
person pushing these things. And if it's obviously a bot, I purge them. I purge about maybe 300 people a week from the list.
yeah.
Um,
It's
and that's
it's
how I know I have 70,000 people that follow me in earnest because I about every week there's about 300 people who get axed.
yeah. I mean, it's like
Um,
Keith's saying in chat. It's like you like a porn bot is someone who's like Anna 350. If an account called like Monster Cockfucker
yeah,
3000 follows you, that's a real person
that's a real person.
who you probably don't want to open their account in public. um,
Um, or it's the mildest stuff ever. I remember back in the day. I forget the exact username, but it was something like "Choke Me Daddy 69," and you clicked on it, and it was just pictures of flowers, and I was like, "Cool."
oh,
But it's the Tumblr is a very different ecosystem to a lot of social media. It is very, very different, and people trying to put Twitter expectations onto Tumblr, it's not going to work.
yeah. I
And
mean,
I don't want it to work because I don't want to have to go with, I said it before, there's a very different kind of Facebook author versus Tumblr author. I don't want to have to conform to what Facebook and Twitter authors do because I don't want to be consumable by mainstream media because mainstream media is the regulations and expectations are there that I don't want to conform to. It would be
yeah.
fantastic if my work appealed to the mainstream, but it's never going to.
To be honest, it's why like I I think I'm just comfortable with posting more shit on Tumblr because I know that I don't know there is just this weird expectation of what like a like I don't know. I feel like maybe from a Scottish political perspective, because of the folk that follow me on that, there's like stuff that I can post on Tumblr that maybe wouldn't like they would never get out of a very very small bubble on Twitter. Whereas
Yeah.
like I see some of the like the really viral tweets I see on Twitter, like I feel like they would either die on their arse on Tumblr or they're succeeding because it's a Tumblr type post. There's
Or
no in
because it's
between.
a Tumblr post that's been transplanted to Twitter.
Yeah.
Because that's a big thing as well. I've seen so many Tumblr posts that didn't all of a sudden they're just being quoted on Twitter and Instagram as if it's like an original thought that happened over there. And it's like, you didn't invent blorbos. We invented blorbos. Give us, which if anyone's listening is like, what the fuck is a blorbo? Blorbo just means the little guy in your show that you love, a blorbo.
Mm.
And I've seen it become a mainstream thing, and it's like, oh, well, this is cringe. And it's like, of course it's fucking cringe. What? It's not supposed to be cool. Like, why? It's a really weird kind of thing. Like, it's like, oh, they try to mainstream things. It's like, it's not going to happen. Like, it's so surreal to me when people are like, oh, this is so cringe on Tumblr. And I'm like, you're on Tumblr.
Yeah.
Of course it's cringe.
I've,
Like,
sorry, I've just looked at another Twitter thread here, and it's everyone moving to Tumblr from Twitter. Please, for the love of God, read this. And it's advice on new Twitter users moving to Tumblr. And I was really hoping that the first one would just be like, please, for the love of God, don't. But no, they're giving like serious advice to people who are moving to Tumblr, and I kind of like. They don't deserve the advice. They need to go through the gauntlet of learning. This is how I was crafted into a Tumblr user over many a year of making dumbass mistakes. don't give them the cheat sheet. That's not how it works.
The official Tumblr on Twitter just released reason number 10 to join Tumblr. We have an edit button and it's free. Reason number 11. Do you love inside jokes? Would you like to be part of one someday? Well, hop on your Plinko horse, grab your blorbos, little meow meows, and glub shitsos, because we're on our way to steal some shoelaces from the president in super hell. That is completely incomprehensible to anyone outside of Tumblr, and I love it. It sounds like you're having a fucking stroke. It's amazing.
I think I had a stroke just listening to it. But like, I mean, like this is the thing. So you've got people on Twitter talking about where to go, where to move to. And you've got a bunch of people going, "Oh, I'm making a Mastodon account," which having had a little look at Mastodon, it looks like fucking bin fire. Honestly, it's not like the user experience and onboarding of Mastodon is.
It's like the old IR. I'm showing my age here, the old IRC chat groups, but not as intuitive. And it's pick a server. I don't know what fucking server to pick, because can you talk to people outside that server? Are you trapped in that server? Like, it's not intuitive at all.
Yeah,
it's awful. And people keep telling me, oh, you have to migrate, you have to save your data and go to Mastodon. I would rather just let my Twitter die because I don't want to deal with that. Mastodon had a brief moment in 2018 when they banned Tiddy on Tumblr. I made an account there and it was like, nah, I'll suffer over here. That's pretty much the vibe, yeah. And now titties are back on Tumblr, so long as they are artistic. Just put a black and white filter on it and your tits are good. Fantastic.
Good things come to those who wait.
Yes.
I mean, to be honest, like, so long as they're artistic, surely, I mean, you could let my nudes are fucking art, like, anyone could pass that off.
I mean, they were fucking, did you see the Blaze post the other day that was just basically someone's nudes? Hats off to them. It
like, was fair fucks, to be honest.
I was like, I would rather see that than the weird Christian posts I've been getting. I would rather just see someone's tits. But I was looking at them going, somebody at Tumblr approved that. They went, yeah, that's got artistic merit, and hit okay. And I was like,
yeah, you can tell though that like I feel Tumblr staff are like way more into like the site wide in jokes. Like, I kind of like, obviously you get cringe posts like the in-joke one that they've just done on Twitter, but, like, I feel like they have a better grasp of, like, what the community kind of expects. And, sorry, there's just another... I'm already seeing screenshots of people who have purchased Twitter Blue who are now angry because even though they've paid, the blue check mark hasn't appeared on their profiles. So they're taking people's money and not giving them the blue check mark.
Fantastic.
Amazing. We have that's just incredible.
Apologies if you can hear Holly Muck crying, by the way. I don't know what's wrong with her. I think she wants.
I mean, one thing I'll commend your Blue Yeti microphone for is that I can't hear Holly Mop at all.
You can't hear her. No.
Nah.
She is crying. She's just sitting on the floor crying on her backside. Hi. What do you want?
I'm going to post a link to Twitter again so people can join us for the downfall. We might even tweet occasionally. We might. Yeah. We only really announce stuff from the Tumblr and the Twitter, which is, to be honest, how it's intended. But yeah, I mean, I'm curious to see how, like, Elon gets round this, because like how he's paid for it. I can't say with 100% certainty, but I heard that he basically used some of his Tesla stock as collateral for buying Twitter. So if Twitter dies on his arse, could he potentially lose his stake in
that was my understanding
Tesla?
of it, yeah.
Because that would be fucking hilarious.
It's literally when this happened. So when this was all happening, Mothman had a laughing fit for about 10 minutes. He's fucked his Tesla stuff because if this crashes and burns, it will take his Tesla stuff with it. Holy.
To be honest, like the sad thing is, Elon is the sort of guy that could probably open up a Patreon account and he'd have all of his fanboys giving him $5 a month, like easily.
I would walk into the ocean if that happened. I would just disconnect and go.
You can tell that he could though, right? Like I mean,
he could.
And to be honest, I think that's something that's really, really impacted the way that Twitter's seen by advertisers and stuff. Is like it's now just. You've got like Elon fanboys who are like atting people who are just voicing, casual dislike for some of the changes coming in. People who are saying, "Oh, it's quite sad to see the number of people who've been sacked from Twitter are getting like hounded in their fucking like notes or mentions or whatever." I feel like we're confusing Twitter and Tumblr terminology now. All social media will become one at one point. But you're getting people like absolutely like hounding like individuals for is like just stuff. Like you've got it was like the human rights team, and people are like, "Oh, why does Twitter need a human rights team?" And it's like, what?
It's paid attention, you would know why.
But it's like it's the largest fucking global social media. Like, it's probably got the most number of users. I'm not sure about the comparison of Facebook and Twitter users. I would say there's more Twitter users, right? I don't know. That's a good point, actually.
I mean, I think there would be, but I think Facebook is... I mean, Facebook's having its own problems. I don't know if anyone was aware of the massive glitch that happened on Instagram last week where they literally purged like 1 million people at random, and it was just a glitch.
That's kind of funny. Like, just... It's kind of shit, but it's also just like, whoops, computer fucked up. Say goodbye to like all of the accounts that are like, I don't know, people using it instead of like for a baby's photo album, like that kind of shit. Like, it's a very Tumblr glitch.
It is. It's this very spaghetti code thing when people are like, oh, I got shadow banned on Tumblr. Like, bestie, there's no shadow ban. It's literally just, it doesn't work.
I mean, the interesting thing, and to be honest, there's an article that I have saved because it's really quite interesting. But the Facebook engineers have no fucking idea where any of the data is on the website at all. Like, I'm gonna see if I can find it because it's really so. I'll read it out. So Facebook engineers, this is the September the 7th, 2022, this was published. We have no idea where we keep all of your personal data. In March, 2 veteran Facebook engineers found themselves grilled about the company's sprawling data collection operations in a hearing for the ongoing lawsuit over the mishandling of private user information stemming from the Cambridge Analytica scandal. Yes, that is still going on. The hearing, a transcript of which was recently unsealed, was aimed at resolving one crucial issue. What information precisely does Facebook store about us and where is it? And the engineer's response will come as little relief to those concerned with the company's stewardship of billions of digitized lives. They don't know. Like the main quote from it, it is rare for there to exist artifacts and diagrams on how those systems are then used and what data actually flows through them. And this is like the thing that I'm going to go on like a proper like tech rant now. But like for those of you who are at all techie, like literally everything in the past 30 years has been built on what they call plug and play technology. So like people like your kind of Microsofts and your Oracles and your Apples of this world, they've built like really, really cool bits of kit, right? They've been able to build great bits of hardware and great apps and all the rest of it, but there has been absolutely like fuck all engineering principle behind how all of these things connect together. So, like, if you think about it from whether it's a bank or whether it's the health service and the health data and anything like that, there is just piles and piles of bits of kit that have just been plugged into each other. So, like, we'll take the Instagram thing you were just talking to us about, Joy. Mm-hmm. That might have been caused by someone turning off a bit of kit somewhere. Could be a server stack, could be anything. Mm-hmm. It could, and just they had no idea that is where those accounts were stored, or the data associated with those accounts were stored, because there's no way of them to know. So they just, so like, you've got what I would describe as almost like an archaeological dig of bits of IT kit that no one actually knows how it's all put together. And that's the problem that Twitter's now got, is that the people who maybe have that knowledge in their heads have now been punted out the company. And that's why they're trying to get them back in, is because like they can't possibly do it without, because nothing's documented. There's no, from one company to the next, the documentation changes. So you've got like potentially highly trained, you might be an engineer at Twitter for 13 years. Sure, you'll be clever enough and a fee with being able to jump into different ways of working. But chances are Twitter's mode of operating isn't entirely the same as, if they go over to Google or they go over to Meta or like wherever it is. There's not going to be the same, there's not going to be the same processes in place, and they're not going to document things in place.
It's a clusterfuck, it's a technical term, I believe. But it's just not. I mean, it's an issue. I've been watching the comments go by, people saying, "Oh, I've been shadow banned on Tumblr." There is no official shadow ban on Tumblr. It is spaghetti code glitch.
Yeah.
And you can say, well, it happened to me because I was horny posting. It happens to people who aren't horny posting as well. Like, they just suddenly can't send messages and they can't do these things. And the staff end up going, what the... They're literally just pulling apart the spaghetti code, going, I don't know what this is, because it's not part of their official policy. And even the people that get the horny blogs that got pixelated at one point, there's now an appeal system you can go through to get unpixelated, because that was done by... Again, it was when Yahoo owned them. Was it Yahoo?
Yeah, right? Yahoo. Yahoo bought Tumblr as well.
Yeah, and it was an extremely bad piece of code that just was auto-flagging everybody. Like, at one point, I got flagged because my bread recipe kept getting flagged as porn for some reason. And it's, the current staff are going, we don't know what this is. It's spaghetti code that's been left over from other people. Then it just lives on like a ghost in the machine. And a lot of the staff that built these things are just gone. Because at one point Tumblr had such a high staff turnover, they would be like, oh, like, who did this code? Oh, we don't know. What does it do? Don't know. But it's that kind of, you need people that know where these things are. Otherwise, everything just goes to absolute chaos. And that's what we're going to start seeing with, like you were saying with Instagram, it could have been someone flipped off the wrong switch.
Yeah.
And a million people not only lost their accounts, a million people, there were people that lost hundreds of thousands of followers.
Yeah.
And it meant they lost their entire revenue.
Yeah. But I mean, like, that'll be a flip of the switch, and then these accounts die, and then these accounts disappear from people's follow list. Like, I did see someone complaining. It was like, has anyone noticed that they lost like 300 followers on Instagram? Which, yeah, I think it's an interesting one, but it's largely because there is no standardized way of documenting all this out. People don't people are so focused on the IT that they actually don't know what the IT does. Like, on some occasions, like, their heads down on, all the different bits of kit, but if they turn off that box, they have no idea that it underpins like a specific process.
And Alice had posted a really good thing there too, which was, remember when the Y2K stuff was happening, they were pulling people out of retirement because no one knew how to code in
COBOL. Yeah.
And COBOL. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just about, I'd brought that up. I was just double checking it. But like, yeah, that's 100% like how kind of plug and play technology and like not proper documentation. And I think like this isn't a dig at anyone who's a software developer, but there is a certain industry thing at the moment where I feel like software developers are like the football players of the the career world, where it's like they're massively. I don't want to say they're massively overpaid because they do an important job, but like some of them are, and a lot of the time there's also not the same like documentation and rigor. Like so many people like don't comment their code up and things like that, you know. Like there's all the like things that within the software development environment, oh well, no one comments up their code. Well, why do you think we're fucking in this mess? Properly document my code, but then I could get fired and someone else can take over. Well, that exactly. It's like manufacturing their own job security. I did see that there was like a joke where it was like 4 people with like MBAs sitting around a table that were all on like 120k a year, but it was like the developer that was on like 350 because they're able to build out their wee nest egg and be this sort of single source of like the key. Also, almost like the keeper of the keys, to be honest. You know, they become really important in that regard. But yeah, it's interesting that like, so I mean, that's Facebook, obviously one of the biggest companies in the world, and they've got no fucking idea where all of their data is for anything. Like they couldn't tell you. The engineers just couldn't tell you. Which is why I also think that they should get the title engineer stripped from them. I have a fucking issue with that myself. I could go off on that for fucking ages. We
could just get you and Mothman on one day and you can just go at it.
I'm fucking telling you.
My eyes glaze over because I'm just like, I have no clue what's happening right now.
Okay.
But yeah, I can hear him behind me. I can feel the the rage.
I'm gonna put it in the simplest fucking terms, right? If you're in, like, engineers, like, humans have done engineering since fucking forever, right? As in, we were doing engineering back when we were building the pyramids and all this sort of shit. Like, engineering requires it's a mindset and it's an approach. And one thing that I'd say any engineering discipline has is, like, a proper like schematic diagram. Doesn't matter if you were a Roman engineer putting together an aqueduct or whether you were a fucking oil and gas engineer when we started to drill for oil, right? You had to understand every single fucking thing to make sure that the water, the electricity, the oil, the whatever got from point A to point B. Why the fuck can someone call themselves an engineer at Facebook and not know where the data from a user goes from point A to point B and all of the touch points in between?
Yeah.
That's it. Fuck. Right, okay, I'm not saying any more on that. But it's like, you know, we get to call these people in. There's not an engineering aspect to that. Because if there was an engineering approach, then like you would know every single bit. I mean, like, in the oil and gas world in particular, like, if you're working at an oil refinery and something goes wrong, people die. And then the regulator would come in and say, did you know every single fucking point that, like, what caused that accident? Let's get out your schematic drawings. Let's have a fucking look at it. And then they would go through each and every step and say, okay, the problem started here. Here was the ripple effect. Why in a world that pretends to be ready for AI and all this shit do we not have that? Like, all like, so all these companies right now are all like jacking themselves off over things like AI. They think the AI is going to swoop in and magically save the day.
Yeah.
But what people are calling AI at the moment is actually just machine learning. Machine learning can only learn based on the data that it has access to, and the data that it has access to is soaked with our own human bias and has very little fucking access to it. Again, I'm shutting the whole. Joy, say something else.
I'm watching the techies in the chat just actually debating all this stuff, and I'm like, cool. I'm glad they're having enrichment on this stream.
Yeah. Okay, I'm not saying anything. You take over.
I don't know what else to say. It's that kind of. Actually, just thinking of the Tumblr, the staff members that I follow, they were kind of like, they brought up a really interesting thing yesterday, which was people were saying, well, if Twitter's able to fire that many staff and still stay open, does that mean they're overstaffed or are you understaffed? And the answer that Tumblr gave was, we are understaffed, but both can be true. But the thing is, they're cutting the dead weight from Twitter, but it's not dead weight. They're saying it's dead weight so that they can turn around and say, well, actually, we've made a profit this year, because they have to reach so the shareholders put so much money into Twitter, okay? Twitter is currently in huge amounts of debt. Twitter has never made money. I forget how much debt they have. I'm sure Mothman could drop it into the chat because he knows. But it was the reason they're axing all these people is that they probably had to lose so much in spending to make that number work. And it's going to be, when it gets to January, Elon Musk's going to go, look, Twitter's not in debt anymore. Look how well I'm managing this company. And it's going to be, it's not that it's not in debt, it's just that you don't have the staff to run it anymore. And that was a thing that Tumblr did for a long time. Yahoo cut all the staff to say, oh, look, we're Yahoo bought Tumblr for like I forget how much money it was, a lot of money, and then they sold it for like the equivalent of $1. And it was like, oh yeah, well we made money, like we were no longer in debt because we look at all this money we've saved. They just saved it by getting rid of the staff, and that was to the absolute detriment of the platform. Twitter's about to go through a very similar thing. Twitter's about to see Tumblr levels of functionality, which good luck.
Well, I mean, the interesting thing is like Twitter went public in 2013, and like, when you take a company public, there's a certain level of it being too big to fail to a certain degree. Like, for example, one of the energy providers in the UK went kind of bust, basically, and they were saved by the government. The government gave them something like 1.6 billion to get them back in motoring, and now they're going to be acquired by another energy company. But Elon's now taking it private again, which means it will just fucking hemorrhage money. Like, there's not going to be the same level of like stakeholders wanting to keep it afloat and we can save the ship or anything like that. Like, if it really is all down to him, and there's no board and there's no like kind of key stakeholders surrounding it, like, it's I don't know what the fucking I don't know what the end game is. And maybe the end game was just to tank the site. Maybe he got laughed at too much by accounts and he just wants to wipe it off the face of the earth.
Did you see it only lasted for about an hour or so maybe, but one of the people that was leaving suspended his account before he left.
Yes, I did see that. That was cool.
I was just like
yeah, it's like you have done. It's a shame that there wasn't like a kill switch on the account. Like it was only a suspension. Imagine being able to just wipe his account off the face of the earth. Because imagine what that would have meant if he then created his account again and had to fight against his own verification checkmark system for.
He would have had to
like that would have been
$4.99. That would have been him.
It would have been really, really funny. Right, I feel like I'm now going to go and upset everyone else further. I'm guessing, has anyone heard of the game Candy Crush?
Yes.
Did you did you hear about what they did?
I did not know.
Oh, well, so Candy Crush, to mark their 10-year anniversary or some
It's
hellish
been 10
nightmare.
years.
I don't know, it's something like that, but what they did was they created a giant Play Now Candy Crush advert in the sky over New York with drones. Um, so we're moving in to the world of drones in the sky at night being adverts, right? Which I'm not sure if it breaches terms of service to advocate for, like, as as Mothman says, becoming a terrorist. I would actually say it's your citizen duty to, I don't know, like, fuck it. I'm not sure if, can drones get fucked with laser pens or something like that? I feel it is like.
I think we should find out. I literally went into the 10th dimension of hell when you started telling. I was like, oh, the dystopia is fully here. Okay, that's
you thought I was just going to start talking about Candy Crush and what level I was
did.
on.
I did. I thought you were going to
No,
tell me there'd been a privacy breach or something. No, it's
No,
more.
no.
It's drones in the night sky playing advert. Okay.
And the worst thing is like, so this is how garbage Twitter is and how garbage people are. But I saw someone going, "What's the difference between that and a light show that was done in Japan?" And they posted a video of it was drones in Japan.
Doing the fireworks.
Doing. No. It was like they'd done a Pokemon light show. Right?
Oh.
So they had like a giant Charizard and then it morphed into like a Pikachu and all this sort of stuff. And it was like, I would argue that has kind of artistic merit because like Pokemon is like quite, solidified in the international psyche. It's very recognizable. But Candy Crushes was a big Play Now in the sky. Like it wasn't Pokemon and buy now on Nintendo Store. It was it was just the Pokemon. Whereas Candy Crush, it was like play now, and then they had the three, like, they had like a match of Candy Crush getting matched up, and it was like the worst thing in the world. People are talking in chat about the Ren Fair where the guy chucked a spear at a drone, which is pretty cool, to be honest. Yes.
I don't object. So a lot of people object to drones in general. I don't. I've seen them being used to replace fireworks, and I love that.
Yeah, that's cool.
I like fireworks. I do not like the noise. I do not like the air pollution it creates. And I think drones can be a good alternative to that because, people don't talk about the fact that a lot of small birds and, other insects and stuff, they get wiped out by fireworks. And also it's bad for people with PTSD. It's bad for people with migraines. It's bad for animals, all the loud noises and the bangs and the smoke and everything. I quite like seeing the drones doing it because once the drones are down, they can be used again for a different light show.
Yeah, and they can just be fucking transported around. I mean, so Falkirk had their fireworks yesterday, because it was the 5th. I must admit, I do find it extremely funny that the UK in the week running up to like remembrance and respect for like the veterans and everything like that, they have the PTSD fucking trigger show, like, because it is just like constant fucking fireworks. And of course I hate it because like the dogs that live near us all go mental, and obviously they're really distressed by it, and that's never nice. Our cats are never too bad with fireworks, so they did live in Edinburgh, so they're used to like loud noises and traffic. Used
to the Hogmanay explosions,
But
it's just so, I don't know. A lot of it seems in protest to me. Like you're saying, like they're having like for veterans and stuff like that. Oh, let's have fireworks. Fuck off. Seriously.
Yeah. Well, no, it's just like it is weird how like and to be honest, that like for those of you who don't know, Remembrance Sundays on the 11th, and this is the whole poppy thing that it becomes more and more kind of egregious every single year.
The military
Like,
propaganda show that it's become, instead of it actually being about remembrance, yes.
yeah, I mean,
The
like, I'm not sure if you saw one of the things I put up on Tumblr, but someone took a photo at a supermarket where there was like cadets that were collecting money or whatever, and the the cadets were holding baguettes like rifles over their shoulder. They were they were doing it like this, and they were standing on like at guard at the supermarket with fucking baguettes. It was very weird experience. Like the UK goes daft every year for this thing, to the point where it's not respectful. And like, I mean, obviously World War II, we've still got a bit to go before it's been 100 years since the end of World War II. But like for World War One, I would say like it's been over 100 years now. I think my take on it is that like they have been respected for that 100 years, and maybe it's now time to like actually let them rest.
to
Is that
me,
kind of thing?
it's not about remembrance. It is propaganda and jingoism
Oh, it
a
is.
lot of the time. Because I mean, I grew up in a village town, and there's photos from the end of World War Two and the war monuments. It was a war monument that was erected for World War One.
Yeah.
Then World War Two was hot behind it. There's a photo from World War Two, and there is literally people from all the surrounding villages came to that one place, because it's where the church was as well.
Yeah.
And it was just, you could not see for bodies, and it was people there for remembrance.
Yeah.
Now, when you go, it's a military parade with hiring bands.
Yeah.
That's not what Remembrance Day was. Remembrance was, let us hope we never do it again. That's what one of the banners that was on display. It was like never again was the message that was on it. Now it's, it gets to Remembrance Sunday. There's recruiting trucks for the military. Something has gone wrong. That's not what this is supposed to be.
Yeah, there was
unsettling.
There was a really bad one a couple of years ago, which I think I posted about it at the time, and it sometimes like comes up every Remembrance Day. But there was a one that was really bad, and it was like the army went to like a school, and like these kids were wearing like t-shirts that said "Future Soldier" on them. In the most like fucked up way going. Like it was really bad. And it was like
really uncomfortable.
Which is funny because there's also like, I think there was a game at the time called Ghost Recon Future Soldier. It was like the worst PR fucking nightmare for them. But it's like, it's the amount, like the thing is, and like the army like really try and ramp up recruitment around this time as well. Another thing that's quite interesting is that a lot of the poppies that are made by people in prison on basically slave wages. They get paid less than minimum wage to make these poppies. And then of course the British Legion or whatever, they get to keep all the kind of donation money, and then because they're a charity, they don't get taxed on it, you get the idea.
It really is playing into imperialistic jingoism of, we were the greatest country, we did this, we did that. And it has nothing to do with the original meaning of it. And it makes me really uncomfortable. And again, I came from a small village town. We lost something like 90% of our young men from that village.
Yeah.
That was like, you look at the monument, there's brothers, there's entire families wiped out on that plaque, and they have the gall to bring an army recruiting truck in on Remembrance Day. It really annoys me. It really does annoy me. And I was in Girl Guides and Girls Brigade. We were mandatory. We had to go and fly the flag at these things.
Yeah, I did the same.
And that's when I remember the military trucks coming in. I remember thinking, that's a bit weird.
Yeah.
As a kid, and as an adult, it's infuriating. And I could never understand, like, because I grew up with it being a very kind of community-based thing. Like I said, I was in Girl Guides, and it was always like, we're honouring the fact that there There was one family lost. The family just doesn't exist anymore. They were all gone.
Yeah.
And the farm was still lying vacant because no one, it was an important part of the village, so no one took it over. And then you just have these military trucks rolling in, like, oh yeah, come on, children, let's recruit for the war. And it's just like, I no, like,
Yeah.
it's literally just such a weird contrast. And then you have, like you say, like the basically slave labor creating these poppies, and if you're not wearing one, it's a huge stigma.
Well, this is the thing. So there was an Irish boy on the Graham Norton show who wasn't wearing a poppy, and the
Mm-hmm.
amount of fucking complaints that the British public sent in because one of the guests wasn't wearing a poppy. I mean, I'm desperate to know. I mean, I can already picture them, but it's fascinating to know what type of person picks up the phone or writes in to a TV show, because the guest that isn't even from the UK isn't wearing a poppy. I mean, I think the Irish
Yeah.
have more than a couple of reasons not to wear a poppy and, like, lean into the whole British jingoism side of it.
Yeah.
It's weird that it's this kind of like hyper British nationalism that is
Well, it's been part of
ridiculous.
it's been the, not to bring up, speak up, Boris Johnson again, but he was a huge part of media presence for a long time before he became prime minister. And
Yeah.
he used to go on things like, Have I Got News for You, which, for anyone who doesn't know what that is, it's a comedy show that it focuses on the news that week. And he would bring up a lot of, like, I believe Britain, we are the greatest country in the world, but like, you do the whole kind of, buy a jingo, Imperiana, and
Yeah.
all that stuff. And it's been it's been coming in very, very insidiously since the days of Maggie Thatcher, that the
Yeah.
empire can survive. And people. There are some people who do genuinely believe that, and they genuinely want the empire to continue to exist. And you're going, what is wrong with you? And the answer is they have no other source of community other than that.
That. Yeah.
And it's very kind of, some people are saying in the chat, it's like war larping. It's
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, we're
But
larping at the 1940s when we were the greatest empire ever, and it's like, where are we?
yeah.
Where are we
I
ever?
mean,
Like, is this any of our stuff? Should we feel proud of it? If you think
but
of it with any sort of compassion in your heart, you have to say, no, actually, we should be quite ashamed of our entire imperial history.
the
There's
problem.
nothing to be proud of.
Yeah, I mean, the problem with, like, post World War II UK is it was actually the children of the people that went through World War II that almost, I feel like it's almost like stolen valor to a certain degree, because it was it was like the most entitled British people were the people born in the aftermath of World War
Yeah.
II. It's almost like they claimed their parents' role in the war as their own, to say. Yeah, it's like it's boomers basically, but it's like they claimed their parents' role in the war as their own. And that's where you get this kind of like weird hyper British nationalism where oh, we were the greatest. I mean, like, fair enough, if they respected their parents for it, that's one thing, but morphing it into
my generation.
my
suffered.
generation. Yeah, it's like, well, the generation where, like,
your generation maybe like, so my dad's that generation. He's very anti-war and everything. He's anti everything. But he remembers rationing being a thing still when he was wee, because of how badly they were affected. He remembers that. And he remembers, all these things where you had your ration book and you had all these things. He's of the generation that came after that. And he never, he worked with a lot of, when he went into his apprenticeship, he worked with a lot of ex-soldiers that had all been traumatized and all these things. And his experience was very different because he grew up with a dad that was PTSD and was very unhealthy and all.
Yeah.
It was bad. And the reality of that for him was it was bad. And he always took the view of the people that were very bad jingo about it, and my parents fought, and it's a justification for the trauma that was inflicted on them. And because you did have a lot of men who came home from the war and they took it out on their families, unfortunately. And my dad's reasoning, his understanding of these people that are they double down on it, and it's, well, my generation, they have the trauma from the previous generation's trauma. So to
Yeah.
them, it carries over as if they've fought the war as well because they had that inflicted on them. And to some extent, I do agree that that is part of it, but that does not make it okay. It's a
Yeah.
bad coping mechanism to say, well, we're the greatest because stiff upper lip and we never show emotion. And it's like, you
I
need
think
therapy. Like that's,
yeah. I mean, I
you
think
know.
the thing with like when people think about remembrance, they do bundle World War One and World War Two together, and
They do.
I kind of I'm not sure. I mean, like World War One was a rich person's war that was fought with like monarchies. It was like it was a
Yeah.
family feud between monarchies
I mean,
basically.
that's basically what all major wars have been.
Well, I mean, like the
Throughout
thing.
history.
Yeah, I mean,
It's
like
been,
the only difference with that is like World War Two, we were actually fighting against like actual fucking Hitler. So it's
yeah.
like it's a bit different, but like I feel like to bundle. I mean, like it's weird because I've watched one of the World War One films that's just kind of been redone on Netflix. It's All Quiet on the Western Front,
Oh
and
yeah,
it's
yeah. Mm-hmm.
it's obviously had a couple of iterations of it, and I think it was quite a popular film before. But this is like a 2022 remastering of it. It's a German film, so the original was filmed entirely in German. It's got like a British dub or an English dub, um, if you want that, or you can watch it with subtitles. But it was interesting because like World War One is, I don't know why, but I feel like I'm not. I'm not sure about the reincarnation thing. But I always get so fucking nervous whenever I see a depiction of guys about to go over the top in the trenches. I don't know why, but like I'm not sure if it's just a kind of modern film thing where they've absolutely mastered it. But I remember watching it in Blackadder. In like season 4 of
That
Blackadder.
the one that I cry every time, even still
Yeah,
watching it.
because like that's a
Yeah.
that's a big standout one for like a lot of people. Was like it's been a really funny comedy show the entire way through, and then the final fucking episode and the final bit of that episode is them going over the top and them all getting killed.
It ends with poppy fields.
Yeah, like there's this like amazing screen transition to like them all charging in slow motion, and then it just becomes poppy fields. But like they did it in 1917 as well. And then they did it in this All Quiet on the Western Front. But it's like you're seeing it from the German side, which is quite interesting and weirdly quite sympathetic as well, in a way that it's like, I mean, these guys were just being told to fucking run at each other and getting like mowed down. So there's like, there's a way that that's portrayed, which is, I don't know why, but I always get really, really nervous whenever there's a scene where they're about to be told to go over the top. I don't know why. I get really like anxious, as in to the point where I can like picture myself being in a fucking trench and being about to be told to go over the top. I don't know what it is, but it is.
It's.
They,
I think growing up in the UK, it's ingrained because so much of our history focuses on World War Two,
yeah.
and also the fact that it was the poor people going over the top.
Well, World War One.
World
for
War
the
One,
for the trenches, yeah, and
for
then
the trenches, yeah, and it's very kind of ingrained that it's, well, if you were poor and you enlisted, you basically cannon fodder.
Yeah, that was
and I remember, it's the Blackadder one is really funny because the cast from Blackadder hated how that ended. They thought it wasn't respectful enough. And they did it. They put it in slow motion because when they were doing it, they looked at it and they thought it just looks like us being prats and flailing about,
just running.
And
yeah,
they were trying to get this major kind of, this was the death of the entire generation. This was, it was inflicted by, the upper echelon of society. We're going, oh yeah, just go die, so that we can continue being the ruling classes. And it was really interesting to watch how uncomfortable they were with it, because they thought they weren't doing it justice.
It's funny because like Stephen Fry's character is the officer that sits way up the back. He's miles away from the actual frontline trenches. It's a really good film. I would recommend it to anyone, by the way. It's All Quiet on the Western Front. It's on Netflix. And it just shows, again, like you always, like, for me anyway, I've always heard about it from the British side. You always hear about the British
Mm-hmm.
and the Battle of the Somme and stuff like that. This is mainly the Germans and the French, and you're seeing it entirely from the German perspective. So I feel like the British quite like to talk about how shitty our trenches were and how nice and neat and tidy the German ones were, because the Germans had proper concrete bunkers built underground and stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that. That's always what's been told. The film portrays it in a slightly different way from the Germans' perspective, which is it was probably just as shit. There might have been
I mean, yeah.
some good bunkers, but it wasn't great.
I just saw Teeth Bar. I remember doing a kind of messed up thing in primary school where we were made to do a fake air raid drill. I have a fascinating story about this from my childhood,
Okay.
and it was this was when the 1800 house, the reality television, had just taken off. I don't know if anyone knows what that was. It was a family. They kind of built this house to be like a time capsule, and the family had to live for a year as if they were in the 1800s. I think it was a year. It could be less than that. But
Okay.
this was when reality television with historical stuff was taking off. And the BBC's done a lot of things. They've done the coal house. They've done the fishermen's houses. They've done World War II. Our primary school made us do, when we were in primary 7, it was a year spent living in World War II. And you had gas masks that you had to carry. You had air raids that would go off. The school classroom windows were papered over. We were eating rations for certain things. Like
Wait, sorry, hold on, for a year? Like a school year?
It wasn't a full year. It was less than a full school year, but it was for a
Okay.
sizable chunk of the year. And
Holy fuck.
it was several months, I think 6 months minimum that we did it for. And a lot of us were developing they were like, oh, well, it shows you how much healthier they were.
It's like vitamin D deficiency and everything.
And nothing ever came of it because it was deemed it was not ethical.
Yeah, fucking hell. What the fuck?
It was like a whole thing where we were like, we had to learn all the World War II songs, and we had to do all these things, and it was like to show you that these British children still had what it took. And it was like, no, actually, it wasn't. Children were not healthier then, because it was this whole idea that, well, kids today, it's very similar in the stuff that I hate Jamie Oliver for, where he goes, oh, kids these days are so unhealthy, blah blah blah. We were so much fitter when we had rationing and we were eating vegetables. We had fucking scurvy. It was we had people.
What the fuck?
It was really just. It was such a bizarre experiment, but they were convinced it would be good for the children. It'll be character building. It wasn't. It was just traumatizing. We have tornado sirens over here in Minnesota, and every time they go off, my fight or flight instinct kicks in because I hear air raid.
No, fucking
because
hell.
of that. And it's like, what was that? Was that just I sometimes think, did I hallucinate that whole thing? And then me and my friends will sit down and be like, remember that time when we had to live through World War II in primary 7 as part of this experiment, and nothing came of it because it was like, oh, actually the kids are malnourished and traumatized and unhappy. It was just such a weird,
I mean, holy shit.
There was oh yeah, we had a lot of it in primary 7. You were deemed old enough to handle learning about the war.
Right.
And a lot of other schools, we had other village schools that we went and had World War II street parties with, for yay, D-Day, it's over, and cut to our class, we're all just standing there.
really need a lemon.
But it was
I feel like my primary 7 class took a slightly more ethical approach to what you did, because we went on a school trip instead.
We did all that too.
We went on a school trip to a museum in Glasgow where we got to dress up as school children in the 1940s.
Is that Scotland Street School?
I think so, yeah. And
we did that
which is a really fun experience. But I remember, so the whole thing was that the teacher's really strict, and it was to show
Yes.
it was to be honest, it was propaganda for the fucking teachers that were taking us there. It was like, look how good we are compared to what you
Look
could
how
have
nice
got.
we are. Yeah.
And
We did the Victorian tour when we were there. That was
okay.
terrifying.
Well,
Yeah.
like the teacher walked about with a cane. He didn't full on cane us, but you know, it was a threat. And I remember like we had to write notes. We had to write to like our parents or some shit. And but we had to do it with these fucking shite pens, right? I'm talking about like the proper ink blotter kind of like fucking pens. And the teacher informed me that I could blot for Scotland. And that was the origin of my name. I for Scotland. Nah, I'm joking. But yeah, I remember him. He was very, very stern. He was like, "You can blot for Scotland, boy." I was like, "Okay."
We did the Victorian era, and the woman that did it was she was walking around smacking the cane off the base of the tables to get people to twitch and jump and everything. But I remember having to write on it was a chisel, a chalkboard with a chisel on it for the Victorian one, and we were all dressed up in the Victorian gear. And my mum was one of the people doing the parent chaperoning type of thing, and she was kind of watching everything happen. She's like, I had that, and I'm like, didn't you go to school in the 50s? And she's like, yeah. She's like, I'm realizing how underfunded our school was. We were using, the chalk.
The Victorian era chalk.
She's like, I'm realizing how shit my school was.
I like the fact that it was just like you were all very much in a Victorian LARP, and your mum was just standing there like, hang on a minute, my school was shite.
Pretty much, yeah.
Right, I think we've gone a wee bit over time. Actually, we've tangents within tangents.
Tangented at the end. Nothing to do with Twitter at all.
No, that's fair. Everyone's come to expect this of us. Right, I suppose I will wrap up. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us for episode 20. We made it to 20. There we go. We're going to be wrapping up now. For those of you who are listening on the podcast, if you're in chat on Twitch at the moment, stay behind. We'll have a wee chat afterwards. But yeah, that's us. We've spoken a wee bit about Twitter, social media, a wee bit of a rant about engineering, and then a wee bit about kind of British jingoism and poppy stuff. So that's that. We were originally just going to title this one Twitter, but now we're going to have to extend.
We're going to have to come up with something different.
Sorry, Joy. I've made your job a little bit harder. But no, that's great. We'll wrap up now. So thanks very much, everyone, and we'll catch you next week. See you later, folks.
Bye-bye.